What's up, you guys? Nick Devine and Devine83 over on Instagram, and I'm here for another pre-recorded build tutorial. Originally, I was going to do a staggerton next. That was going to be my next pre-recorded tutorial, but I figured I would get into staggering ribbon first. I get this question a lot: how do I stagger my ribbon? There's a couple different ways to do it. I'm going to show you how I do it my way. There's two different ways I do it, depending on what I'm doing and what wires I'm using. So I'm just going to dive down and show you the two different ways, and then we'll get on to the staggerton tutorial next. So the two different ways I do it is a loop method, a traditional loop method, just a simple loop method, and I also do parallel Claptoning, which if you guys watch my YouTube live videos, you know I use the parallel Clapton a lot. If it were my choice, I would just use the parallel Clapton all the time. I think it's just the most absolute way of doing it. It just gets the best results. It's the most consistent. But there is ways to use the loop method in certain circumstances that it works just as good. So first, I have a couple drawings here I'm going to show you of when I use the loop method. And first we're going to do the loop method, and then we'll go on to the parallel Clapton. The parallel Clapton is what I use for the staggertons. But first, let me show you the loop method, and I'll show you these drawings. We'll get to the loop method and move on from there. Most likely the parallel Claptoning part of this video is going to be put into the beginning of the staggerton video. So let me dive down, show you these pictures of when I use the loop method and why I use the loop method. Okay, so now when I'm doing the loop method, I only really like to do the loop method in even stacks or square stacks, which means something like 4 pieces of 0.4 ribbon. So right here is just a little diagram of a single piece of 4x1 ribbon, and then here's 4 pieces stacked up. 4 pieces stacked up make an even square, and an even square is very close to a round wire. It just has corners. So a loop method works great on round wire because it's just able to just roll over that circle. With squared wire, it works pretty much the same way. Now this isn't saying that you can't do it with a more rectangular stack. I just find it's more consistent, and these are the reasons why. There's a lot of people that use a loop method on an uneven stack, but these are the reasons why I don't really like to, and I find it comes out inconsistent sometimes. So like I said, a loop goes right over a square just like a round wire. So when it turns around, that loop is just going to continue to turn, and it's going to keep its same shape just like it would do around the round wire. This loop doesn't move. It just sits there, and the fusing wire just goes into place, goes right in front of that loop. And it happens pretty much the same with a square setup. Now let's say if you had a 12-ply stack where it's 0.4 tall, but it's 0.12 wide. What's going to happen when it turns is it's not going to stay on to the stack like it would with the square or the circle. Like I said, it's still possible. It's just the way I do it. It just hasn't been consistent for me. Now let's say if I wanted to do like 5 or 6 pieces of 0.4, it's a lot closer to a square than this 12-ply is. But I usually just parallel Clapton anything that isn't a square. So when it's 4 pieces of 0.4 by 0.1, 5 pieces of 0.5 by 0.1, or 3 pieces of 0.3 by 0.1, so on and so on, that's when I do the loop method on my ribbon stacks. And I do a basic loop method. I don't do the double loop method, basically because it's a square. I've never really tried. and I don't really need to. A basic loop method works just fine after a little bit of practice. So now I'm just going to set up a couple of pieces of ply, 4 pieces, and I'm going to show you how I just go through this with the loop method. Show you everything I do, try to get good footage on it so you guys know exactly what I do. And what I would incorporate this into is something like a staple stagger fuse Clapton with ribbon frames. Okay, so anything with ribbon frames, I usually use 4-ply, 0.4 is when I use this quite a bit. You've probably seen a couple videos where I do this, and sometimes I'll even parallel Clapton it because I want to make sure that I get it perfect. But I'm going to show you how I loop method my ribbon. And if you're just the type that doesn't like to waste your wire, you can loop method and practice it with any stack. It's up to you. But this is, all my videos are just the way I do things. I had this laying here, so just real quick for an example. If you see the frames, the staggered frames on this, they're each 4 pieces of 0.4 ribbon in 40 gauge staggered. So this is just an example of where I would use this. Okay, now let's see if I got everything we need here. Usually I forget something, but... So first of all, you're going to need a drill. I use a DeWalt 20 volt battery operated drill. It's not what you need, but it's my favorite for sure because it could stand up on my table. You always got to make sure that whatever drill you use, the chuck closes all the way. In addition, you're going to need a swivel setup. So the swivels I love to use are Bill Fisher Croc stainless dual rotation ball bearing snap swivels. The snap is just the hook on there. And 320 pound test are the size I use. Alright, also a pair of nylon pliers. These are Beetalon nylon pliers. You can find them on eBay, search Beetalon. Some scissors, any kind of scissors. Needle noses. These are actually crescent needle noses. I got these at Home Depot. I got these at Five Below. And I actually didn't order these on eBay. I got these at a arts and crafts store. It's a big chain. It's AC Moore. I bought these. Hot glue, you can get it at any dollar store. You're going to need a lighter, 7-Eleven. A ruler, any type of ruler. I like to use a little tape measure now. My lighter's actually out of fluid, so I'm going to be using a blowtorch to heat up my hot glue. Not necessary. And then I always like to have water on the side. This holds my water. This was sent to me from one of the guys that watch the channel all the time. It's a little water squonk. I guess this is for bank tellers to count money. Excuse the scar on my hand. That's e-juice burn. I'll actually get a band-aid on that after I go through this. And the wires I'm going to be using are 40 gauge and 0.4 Canthal. But you could really use any ribbon for this. And you could also use any wire 36 or higher for this kind of wire. 40 and 0.4 are my favorites. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so first I'm just going to get out a piece of 40 gauge. Just one turn around the spool. And this is just going to be so I could bind my wires once I get them. Alright, so just about 6 inches of 40 gauge. Just have it out and ready. And I'm going to get my 0.4 ribbon. I'm using Coil Society here. I'm going to get the 0.4 Canthal. And I'm going to get my needle noses. I'm going to cut off the end of it. I'm going to grab the 0.4 with my needle noses, and I'm going to pull out the ribbon about 16 inches. I give it a little stretch to make sure that it goes straight, and cut with my scissors. I'm going to get another piece. Grab it with my needle noses, pull it off the spool, give it a little tug to make it straight. You can let go with the needle noses. Get the scissors and cut. I know, I'm real fucking smooth. Okay. So now I'm going to grab both pieces of ribbon at the end. Make sure they're flush next to each other. Grab them off of my table. Just kind of stack them in my fingers here. I'm going to run my fingers all the way down to the other end until I reach either the end of the first one or the first piece of wire that just is a little bent or messed up. And I'm going to cut them the same size, cutting the nasty stuff off. Now I'm going to take both pieces, grab them with my index and thumb, run my other hand down to the other end, grabbing that end with my index and thumb, bring my hands together, and put both pieces in one hand. I'm going to grab these, this loop, index and thumb, and pull. I'm then going to let go with this hand, come up here, and I pinch the ribbons together on the top and bottom, basically on the 0.1 side. And then I get these two pieces, one on top of each other, and get them into one finger and start to make a loop. One ribbon's on top of the other. I'm going to pinch that loop tighter and doing alternate pinches, one on the 0.1 side, one on the 0.4 side, pinching in alternate directions. I'm going to apply pressure until they stack with each other. You can use your fingernails. And I just want to make sure that I have a nice, clean loop. You want to get it as good as you can. One loop on top of the other. And I'm going to keep my pressure on this ribbon and grab the 40 gauge. I'm going to place the 40 gauge between my thumb and the ribbon. When I pull it, it's not going anywhere. Then I'm going to wrap around the ribbon about 10 times. Very tight, but after the 5th time, I'm going to check my ribbon. I want to look at it and make sure everything looks nice and neat and it's where I want it to be. Then I'm going to do 5 more tight wraps. I can now cut the 40 gauge flush. And I could also now hot glue it. Hot glue is going to be up to you. It's not absolutely necessary, but when doing 4 pieces and staggering wire over it, I just really think it helps. It makes the wire hold a little sturdier. So I am going to hot glue this, and I suggest if you have hot glue, you just do it. It's a little quick thing that tends to help a lot. So I heat up the hot glue on the tip and just dab it right over that 40 gauge I just put on. I'm going to take the heat and apply it back on that hot glue so it melts into them ribbons and dries. Not too much hot glue, just enough to hold it. Now, I'm going to get my water ready. I'm going to grab the loop with one hand, and I'm going to run my fingers down the ribbon. I'm going to do this about 3 times. This starts to get the ribbons laying in the right direction. Then I'm going to get water on my fingers, on my index and thumb. I'm going to do this a couple times. And this is going to make the ribbon go into one piece throughout most of the wire. Now I'm going to grab up here, go down about 1 inch, get 40 gauge, put the 40 between my thumb and the ribbon stack, and I'm going to do 5 wraps. Not too tight, but tight enough to get that stack together. I'm not going to cut this 40 off just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch that 40 gauge. I'm going to pull this loop, and that 40 gauge is going to slide down the entire wire, stacking the ribbon as it goes, and the water is going to keep it stacked. Now all your ribbons should be running in the right direction, not overlapping each other. Then I'm going to take this 40 gauge loop, seeing that it's probably loose since I just moved it all the way down that stack, and I'm going to wrap it about 5 to 10 more times around the end that's about to go into the drill. I could then cut the 40 off. I could cut my ribbon a little more clean. And there's my ribbon stack ready to be staggered. Next step I like to do is to hot glue the end that's going into the drill chuck. So what I do is I take the loop that I just made and I attach that onto my swivel. I then put this onto my swivel setup. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull away from the swivel this stack, making sure that the stack is nice and neat. You could do one of these deals, just get your ceramic tweezers or your nylons and just make sure the stack is still good. There should be no reason it shouldn't be. And I'm going to pull this stack away from the swivel, giving it a little bit of tension. I'm going to get my hot glue. I'm going to heat it up. And I'm going to put a generous glob on the end of this ribbon stack. I'm going to reheat it so it melts in there. And then I usually put another little glob on there when that dries, so my drill has something substantial to grab onto. Because 4 pieces of 0.4 ribbon isn't very substantial. You could vape and blow it on there to let it dry faster. And now I'm ready to insert this into the drill. So what I usually do is I insert it into the drill, but I don't tighten down all the way just yet. It's just to hold it for now. Then I grab my 40 gauge again. I get a piece of 40 gauge, or whatever wire you're using. Of course. And I'm going to get out about 8 inches of a piece of 40 gauge. I'm sorry you didn't see that. I'm going to grab my needle noses, grab the 40 gauge, and get out about 8 inches of it. Cut it with the scissors. Then I'm going to get the 40 gauge from the spool. I'm going to get my 0.4 ribbon out of the drill, and clockwise I'm going to wrap the 40 gauge around the ribbon and over the hot glue. Then I'm going to stick the whole piece of hot glue into the drill as center as I can get it, making sure that it grabs the 40 gauge as well as the hot glue. Going to tighten down. And I'm going to Clapton a bit. Making sure that all my ribbon is still stacked. This 40 gauge in the beginning is going to make sure that it stays stacked when you start off. This is what my stack looks like so far. We're looking at the flat side of the ribbon. And there's the 4-piece side of the ribbon. Alright, so I did forget something in the stuff we would be needing, and that's an RDA, a substantial size RDA. A goon works perfect for this. It's going to be used as a weight. Maybe you have something else that you use for a weight with your loop method. If not, a goon or something the same size as a goon will work good. I'm going to get my 40 gauge. And I'm going to space Clapton now about 5 loops. So I'm going to hold a little angle on the 40 gauge and make a space Clapton for about 4 or 5 loops. Now I'm going to take my 40 gauge, lock it into the spool, and I could set that down for a second. I'm going to grab the 8 inches of 40 gauge that I cut just a little bit ago, and I'm going to loop it over the ribbon in the last space made from that space Clapton I just did. And that loop is going to come down. I'm going to grab it here, and at about an inch down, or 1.25 inches, I'm going to grab both wires with my needle noses, and I'm going to twist. And I'm going to twist this a good amount. I'm going to twist it over about 5 to 10 times. So I just did about 5 times. And then I'm going to get my hot glue. I'm going to heat it up. And I'm going to dab it right around that twist. I have a bunch of excess wire down here that I could just cut off and throw out after the hot glue part. Now I could take my RDA that I'm using for a weight, I could stick the 40 gauge into the cap of the RDA, making sure that the hot glue gets into there, and then I could take the deck of the RDA and stick it into the cap. And now I have weight on that loop. Making sure that the loop is still right behind the fusing wire, right in that first gap I made. I can take my fingernail and kind of push all the wires back. Just make sure that that loop lands in that last space of the space Clapton. That's my loop coming up. Going into that last space. And this is my fusing wire, the one moving right now. I could now take my 40 gauge spool, unlock the wire from it, and I'm going to grab it, hold it about 1 foot away from the ribbon that I'm about to fuse, and I want to hold this on a 90-degree angle going down. I want a very tight angle to that loop. And first I'm going to start off slow, make sure everything is going properly. And once I get the angle, the tension, and I see everything is going smooth, I could pick up the speed. Let me get a close-up. Now, good swivels are going to assure that this thing doesn't twist too much. If it twists too much, it means you need better swivels. So, good swivels are going to make sure that this ribbon just doesn't twist all up. Let me hold my arm up so you can see the angle I have on this. I really just try to keep a 90-degree angle going right into that stack so the loop stays directly behind it. If you do too much of an angle, you're going to make too big of a space. If you do too little of an angle, that loop's going to jump over the fusing wire. You could always back up, get the loop back into place, and go again. I like to hold good tension on the drill away from the swivel so this wire stays nice and straight. Okay, that is it. Now I could cut the 40 flush. Could put that away. And I could cut the loop. Or you could always just undo the goon cap and you can try to get this loop off. I don't really like using the same loop over and over again because that loop wears down and gets to not be a perfect wire. Let me show you what this piece looks like after we're done that. Here's what the hot glue looks like when it comes out of the drill. Here's the top side of the ribbon. Perfectly spaced 40 gauge gaps with 40 gauge fusing. Let me turn it over so you could see. There you see the 4 pieces of ribbon. The loop method takes practice, but it works very good on a square stack. And you can incorporate this wire in so many builds. Alright, let's move on to the parallel Clapton method. Now the parallel Clapton method, in my opinion, is the best way to go about staggering wire. I don't use the dual spool method. I do, but I don't use the dual spool and hold both spools in my fingers. The way I do it is I use plastic bags to hold the spools. So I have smaller Ziploc bags, just something a little bit bigger than the spool, or a lot bigger than the spool, either way. And I'm going to need 2 spools of the wire I'm using. So whenever I purchase 40 gauge, I always purchase 2 spools of it at least. So I have 2 spools of 40 gauge here. One's already in a plastic bag. And what I do is I place the spools inside the plastic bag. I hold the 40 gauge, drop the spool in. I close the bag just enough so the spool can't come out. If it were to come up, it usually doesn't come up. The weight of the spool will keep it down. And as I'm Claptoning the wire comes out of the bag and the spool just turns. So let me get a stack ready and I'll tell you more about this method and I'll show you how I use it and then get my spacing after that. Once again, I'll be using 0.4 ribbon, and this time we're going to do an 8-ply stack. Perfect for a staggerton. Alright, so we're staggering the ribbon now, 8-ply. So first I'm going to have my 40 gauge piece of wire. I have a scrap here. I'm going to want my water. I'm going to want my hot glue and lighter close by. I'm going to grab my needle noses and the 0.4 canthal. Grab the 0.4 canthal with the needle noses. Pull out to about 18 inches because I want my finished wire to be 8 inches. So basically I would normally cut this to 16 to get 8, but I'm just giving myself a little play using 18 inches. So I want an 8-ply, so I need to pull out 4 pieces of ribbon at 18 inches and fold them in half to get my 8-ply. Okay, so now just like I did the 4-ply, I'm going to grab this end of the 4 pieces and I'm going to stack them up. Pinch with both fingers, riding the one hand all the way down to the end. Go to either the shortest wire or the first wire that's messed up and cut them all the same. Trash that. Now I can take these ribbon, pinch them in opposite directions and just get them kind of stacked. It doesn't have to be perfect right now, just kind of stacked. Pinch with this hand, get these fingers, run them down to the other end, bring both the hands together, grab all the ribbon with this hand, and now I have all these loops. I'm going to get in the middle of all these loops. Oops. In the middle of all these loops and pull. Pinch in opposite directions. Bend this loop in. That's going to make the wires a little more sturdy. Pinch in alternating directions. Get them nice and stacked. Get that loop looking nice. Making sure the ribbons are all on top of each other. No twists, no bends, no nothing. pinch it in, get it nice and tight. And then I'm going to grab that 40 gauge. Get the 40 gauge between the ribbon stack and my thumb. Wrap about 5 wraps. And then I'm going to take some kind of tweezers or needle noses or nylon pliers. Pinch down, making sure they're all stacked. I could pinch this way, making sure it's tight. And do about 5 more wraps. 10 more wraps, it doesn't matter. Let's do at least 10, nice and tight. And then I could cut the 40 gauge off. I'm going to run my fingers down 2 or 3 times. I'm going to go down again to the shortest ribbon. Looks like I might have got a little lopsided with this stack, but that's okay. That's why I did extra, just in case. I should still have around my 8 inches. Even 8 inches is a bit big. Run my fingers down again. And now I just want to hot glue that 40 gauge right there. Just dab it. As it dries, just make sure everything's nice and flat here. Now I'm going to get some water. Run my fingers down, and that's going to make the 8-ply turn into somewhat of one piece. Run my fingers down about an inch, inch and a half or so. Get the 40 gauge and wrap it around 5 times. Pinch that 40 gauge, pinch the loop, and ride that 40 gauge all the way down to the end. That's going to stack the ribbon as it goes. I'm going to get it a little closer to the edge. And I'm going to wrap it 5 to 10 more times really tight here. After 5 times, I'm just going to make sure everything's flush. Do about 5 more times, and I can cut this 40 off now. Same thing I did with the 0.4 ribbon, I'm going to do to this, which is get it on my swivel, pull some tension, and hot glue this end. That's going to make this stack nice and tight and more like one piece for fusing. On my swivel, swivel on my setup, pull the stack right before that 40 gauge, pull it tight. I'm going to heat up my hot glue off camera here, and I'm going to dab it right on that 40 gauge. I'm going to reheat it so it falls in there, gets all absorbed into the ribbon. Reheat my hot glue stick and put a bigger glob on here for my drill to grab onto. As it dries, you could also pinch it, make sure everything's nice and tight. I'm vaping Blueberry Delight by American Liquid Co. It's the awesome juice. They also have a peach that I don't know which one I like more, but they just came out with an apple this weekend. And when I tried it in the process of it being made, that may be my favorite. Okay. I'm going to get my drill. I'm going to close it down on this stack real quick, just so it holds it. And now I'm going to get my 40 gauge ready. Actually, before I get my 40 gauge ready, I have another scrap piece of 40 sitting on my table. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it into the chuck a little bit. And I'm going to Clapton this scrap piece around the beginning of this stack, and that's just going to assure that my stack starts off nice and straight. It is 8 pieces, so anything extra you could do to make sure that you get a good start will help. Okay, so just like I said before, I have my 2 spools of 40 gauge, each in a Ziploc bag. The 40 gauge comes up out of the bag, and I have the bag partially opened so that the wire could come out with no problems. When I pull the wire, the spool turns. This bag is going to go on the left side of my left knee. My swivel setup is on my left side, my drill's on my right. I'm going to take this 40 gauge that's in that bag and just set it on the table with something to weigh it down so it doesn't fall. Then I'm going to take this 40 gauge, make sure that when I pull it's okay, and that's going to go in between my legs on the floor. I'm going to cut anything bad off the beginning of this. Same thing with this one. And I'm going to pick up both pieces of 40 gauge. I'm going to grab both pieces. And I'm going to tie it around the beginning of this. I'm just going to try to get a good angle of this. But while I'm in this camera angle, I put the spools on the left side of my body because my swivel's there, and naturally I'm going to be moving towards it. If you put it on the other side, you're going to be forcing away from the swivel. You want to be moving into it. So if the bags are over here, the wire is going to be coming up like this. I don't want that. I want the wire to be coming up into my wire and moving the way that I'm moving, not against me. So just to make this easier, I'm going to tie a knot into these 2 wires. I'll change the camera angle and show you exactly how I wrap this around my staples. I just tie a quick knot into there. Can kind of cut off the excess here. And now they're joined together. Okay, so now I'm going to take the ribbon stack out of my drill. I'm going to grab the pieces of 40 gauge that are tied together here. over this staple stack about 1/4 inch in. I'm going to try to keep these wires close together at this point. And then I'm going to wrap back towards the drill in a clockwise motion because that's the way I'm going to be fusing. And I'm going to go over the hot glue. Then I'm going to stick this into the drill, making sure that it grabs the hot glue along with the 40 gauge. I could pull my drill tight away from the swivel. Now I have both wires coming out. I want to make sure the wire on my leftmost side is on the left and the right one's on the right. Not absolutely necessary. I'm just picky when it comes to this. I'm going to cut that excess off. Now I have both wires coming in. And what I'm basically going to do is just Clapton this with my fingers. I'm going to hold these wires with my fingers. They're going to go together inside of my fingers, so I want to hold them tight together in my fingers. So they become tight here, and they're going to be tight up here. So to get them tight up here, I'm going to take my fingernail and push them together. So now below my hand, they may not be together, but as soon as they get up to my fingers, they're together. And definitely when they get on the wire, they come together. Put my drill in the forward position, and I'm going to start off slow. I'm going to find that angle, and I'm going to hold good pressure. You want to hold good pressure on this. You don't want either of them wires slacking. You want both of them wires to go around this nice and tight. Try to make no gaps. Now if you hold the angle too far open, you're going to get big gaps. Alright, so if I hold this angle a little more this way, I'm going to cause big gaps. If I hold it this way, I'm going to start Claptoning these wires over each other. One's going to jump over the other, and they're going to start Claptoning over each other. So the best thing to do is start off slow, pick up speed, and try to just get it done in one shot. You don't really want to stop and go with this. You want to get it done all in one shot. And you can go full speed with this to get a very clean result. My camera's going to be in the way in a second, but I'll go as far as I can. Once again, I'm holding good tension on this, enough tension to where you see the ribbon kind of bend a little bit, and that's fine. That's good tension to be holding. Let me switch the view and give you a close-up look. Alright, I'm at the end here. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both wires and I'm going to separate them a bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find which wire is closer to the swivel and which wire is closer to the drill. and I'm going to cut the wire that's closer to the swivel flush with the stack. I'm going to take the wire that's closer to the drill, the only wire left now. I'm going to leave about an inch on and cut it. Okay, now we're going to remove the one wire off of here, leaving a gap behind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire and hold it. This is the wire that's closer to the drill. I'm going to put my drill in reverse and simply just pull this Clapton as the drill turns. You want to pull this wire the same angle as you fused, so about a 90-degree angle. Good tension when you pull off too. You don't want to just be pulling at a soft tension because things will start to mess up. Pull at a good tension, keep that angle. I got to change my drill and I'll come back with a close-up as this comes off. Pull in tension, 90-degree angle, drill in reverse. Now when you Clapton this on, because of the tension you hold with the wire, sometimes you get a little twist in it, but doing this step should get that twist right out. Cut that off. And now I have my perfectly staggered ribbon stack. 8-ply 0.4 with 40 gauge over top, 40 gauge spaces. Let me show you a close-up and we'll wrap up this video. Here's the finished product. 8-ply 0.4 with 40 over top of it with a 40 gauge space. If you want to see how this wire is used in a staggerton, just watch the next video that comes up on my channel. I'm going to continue recording to get a staggerton video, but I just think that this was a good video to have. I have some big spacing in this wire because of the angle that I held when messing with the camera, but I believe down at the end here is more true to a 40 gauge space. It's a technique that takes practice, but you could use it with a lot of different wires. And once again, I just think this is going to be a good video to have. Just a quick tip. I get asked the question a lot how I stagger my ribbon, and this is the 2 different ways I do it. Thanks for watching. I'm n.devine, and I'll see you in the next video. Catch me live on Sundays and every other Tuesday. Pre-recorded videos on opposite Tuesdays. I do as best as I can to keep that schedule.